Welcome to the Discussion Lab, the show where we talk about issues that make us tick as people. I am your host, Sammy Moore. You are very biased. No, I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about the person passing over there. I'm talking about you. Yes, you are very, very biased. You don't believe me? Well, imagine this. Let's say it's dark at night and you happen to find yourself in the forest alone, right? You are very scared. It is very dark. It's only a full moon outside. You hear noises in the bushes. You're walking carefully and all of a sudden you hear certain rattle in the bushes. You take a step back, not sure what it is. Could it be a wild animal? Could it be a snake? Could it be a jackal, a wolf? You have no idea. Instantly, your body temperature starts to change. Can you picture what I'm talking about? When you close your eyes and you picture that, you realize that in that instance, you were biased. Well, why am I saying that? You would realize that in that instance that you were in the forest, you had to make a quick decision without enough evidence. What do I mean by enough evidence? You couldn't see what was behind the bushes. All you heard was noises. But you were in the forest. It is dark. It is a full moon. That adds up, right? And so I hope you would agree with me that in that instance, you'll be very biased to more than likely be ready to run or defend yourself. But bear me out. I think everyone is biased. In my humble opinion, I really think that everyone is biased. But there are different types of biases. There's confirmation bias. There's a kind of bias where you look for evidence to kind of back what you already believe in your head. So for example, you have a friend, you think the person is a very kind friend. And so the little kind act that a friend does, you think in your head, I knew this person was a kind person. Vice versa. You have a team leader or a supervisor and you think the person is rude, right? And so maybe the person may or may not be rude, but in the instance where they might pass a comment towards you that might be rude, that confirms the bias in your head that I knew this person was biased. You could be right. In the same way, you could be wrong. There's not enough evidence. That is what confirmation bias is. There is also what is known as the optimism bias. What is optimism bias? This is really where people overestimate positive outcomes and the future. It happens especially when they are in a good mood. So when people are in a good mood, they are more likely to take bet. They are more likely to go and buy a lotto number, right? That is optimism bias. The belief that you think there's a more likelihood of a positive outcome. And then there is Diclinism bias. And hear me out. If you are getting old, most of us really have this Diclinism bias. It's almost in a way kind of opposite to the optimism bias. The Diclinism bias is when you think that oftentimes you tend to view the past more favorable than the current and even the future. What do I mean? Many of us think that the music of the past sounds better than the music now, right? Those of us who grew up in the early 90s, you think that the music in the 1990s sounds better than the music now, or the music in the 2000s sounds better now. You think the movies then or the stories then are better now, the sports, whatever it is. That is a kind of bias. Again, I'm not saying that's not true. Neither am I saying it is true. What I am saying is you don't have enough evidence. And there's the possibility you could be wrong. And the fact that you are even making that assumption, and some of us are convinced 100% that music of the past or food of the past or sports of the past or music of the past. Like I am a hip hop head, for example. And somehow I'm not able to vibe with the current hip hop music that's going around. And so time and time again, I try to listen to it, but I still find myself going back to the old music of the past, right? At least when I was in my early 20s or late teen years, I really loved the hip hop around that time, between the 90s and the early 2000s. But hey, these are all my opinions and certain types of biases out there. Let's check what the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines bias. Let me read it for you. So the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines bias as a strong feeling in favor of or against one group of people or one side in an argument, often not based on fair judgment. This is the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. A strong feeling in favor of or against one group of people or one side of an argument, often not based on fair judgment. And so that's quite interesting, right? You realize that me saying we are all biased is really just about making decisions. They're often not based on enough evidence to say that, yes, what you believe or your perceptions are right. And oftentimes we are somehow internally convinced that what we believe, our perceptions, our assumptions are right. That is what I'm talking about. You are very biased. You don't believe me? Okay, let me give you another example. Let's say it's dark. You're happy you went to visit a friend. Somehow you are walking home because it was a short distance. You are alone. And then you see a group of guys at night. You hear them with loud music coming, about 7 guys. You know they are guys because of their body structure, right? And it's dark, so you can't really see them, but they have hoodies on. And they see you and they stop, they whisper something amongst themselves and they start walking towards you. In that instance, what are you going to do? Are you going to still walk towards that direction? Or are you going to go to the other side or change your direction? Some of us will quickly take our phone and dial a number, probably 911, like, hey, I'm about to get jumped. The point is, in that instance, are you telling me you're not going to think or assume anything? You're just going to pretend you didn't see anything and walk towards them? Some of you are even way biased than you think. When I told you to picture the group of young guys coming towards you, you even imagine them to be from a certain race, a certain ethnic group. Can you imagine that? Why? Probably because you live in that area or you've often seen that those people are more likely to be at night. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that you are biased. It's neither good or bad, but it's good to know that you are biased, right? Okay. Now, I did a bit of research to understand really where does this biasness come from. And then I came across this common debate that will forever be there: nature versus nurture. And so when I was reading, I found that sometimes our biasness comes from nature. It is encoded in our DNA. It's really from an evolutionary standpoint, a survival tool, right? This is oftentimes when many centuries ago, our ancestors needed to make a quick decision, very, very quick decision. If you were living in a cave somewhere or in a small town and you are the spy man standing on top of a hill looking down and you see a group of people running towards your village or your family, you don't know if they are coming to seek for help. You don't know if they have weapons about to attack. What do you do? Right? And so I believe that most of our biasness come from nature. It's been encoded in our DNA some way, somehow, that especially some of us, when we see a long moving object, skinny, slimy object, without even identifying that is a snake. Me, for example, I'm going to jump because I don't like reptiles. I don't like snakes. I can kill them if I have the right equipment, but I still don't like them. And I am not going to sit around to confirm that is a snake. I will take my bias and really jump to safety. But you get my point that we are all biased. So really, the nature part of biasness is really encoded in us. And the reason why it is good for us is really for our survival. Most of the time, this biasness is often there for us to sense danger, something that has a capability to harm us. So instantly your instinct or your gut feeling, whatever it is going to trigger your memory to raise certain biases. Either you may have seen something like this many years ago when you were a kid, probably you don't even record the incidents, or it has been encoded in your DNA and you don't even know it. So that is the nature part of bias. The nurture part of bias. This is your upbringing. Really, this would become your environment that you grew up in, the kind of family or the people who raised you. Did you even grow up with your biological parents? Were they nice to you? Were they good parents? Were they not so good parents? Or did you grow up in an average neighborhood, dangerous neighborhood? Wherever you grew up, whether you are aware or not, it really has a massive influence on you. They form your belief system. So you think you are in the religion that you are in, but perhaps if you were born in a different country, in a different time, you may not have the same religion. Do you get my point? You think that a certain group of people are bad, but perhaps if you were born from a different tribe, you may not think so. The point is, nurture, our upbringing, and our environments really contribute almost 50%, in my humble opinion, to how we become biased people. And especially comments that people in our neighborhood or in our inner environmental circle pass, right? Your parents, your big sibling, your role models, the leaders of your community. If you are not aware, these comments subconsciously settle in your brain and they hide deep down. And in most of your adult life, they are going to lead you to be biased. So you might think that there's a certain tribe that they are genetically smarter than you, or there's a certain group of people that are genetically dumber than you. May or may not be true. That's the whole point. You don't have enough evidence yet. But from the little pinhole that you've looked through, you really think that that's the case because somewhere you are biased. But let's pause. Being biased is not always bad. If you remember earlier, I did mention that it is really a survival tool, right? It's there for our protection. Being biased is most often for your protection. It helps you to quickly make decisions when you spot certain things that could be a danger. And so sometimes you see someone dressed in a certain way or talk in a certain way, and your gut feeling or your instinct kicked in like, no, I don't like someone like that. You're really just biased towards the person. Why? Probably that instance might trigger your brain of someone who behaved that way, that didn't end up well, or they treated someone bad. So your brain stored that aspect of it for your own protection. Maybe this person just had a similar attitude, but may not be bad. Just be aware that whatever happens, most of the time your bias could be right, but also it could be very wrong. So it is for your protection. The second thing is it's also for your mental energy conservation, right? It's there to conserve your energy. Most of us humans, we really live in a patterned lifestyle. Many of us are not aware, but we are very predictable. Humans are very, very predictable. Most of us wake up around the same time, sleep around the same time. We eat almost the same kind of food in 6 months, perhaps a year's time. If we don't change our environment, you do the same things unless something drastically happens in your life. So we are very, very predictable beings, and our brain needs that, right? So once your brain starts to realize the pattern, it begins to store certain information. Especially, have you noticed that when you are on your drive home, on the same road that you go, you could be on that road driving, but somehow your brain could drift. But your instincts, your body, your legs know where to slow down, where to brake, because you've used that road so many times. You even know the potholes without knowing that you know the potholes on the road. You get what I mean? So the second point is really for your mental energy conservation, because energy for the brain is expensive. It really stresses the brain out. There's so much processes going on. It needs to conserve certain energy. So bias is one of the ways that the brain uses to protect you and conserve energy. Last but not least, which I believe I've already mentioned, is really to help you make faster decisions. So you realize that people who have not been in a lot of, in quote, controlled danger or danger before, they cannot really make very fast decisions. They almost have no bias in them, right? So naturally, there are some people who are just quick on their feet. But the average person, we grow this from being biased. What do I mean? By practice, right? You have to be in a spot where you make quicker decisions. You make decisions over and over and over. And you make mistakes with some you guess them right. So eventually when a similar incidents happen and you have to make a quick decision, you are really able to decide that in this instance, this is similar to what happened in the past, and I think I may go with option A. Perhaps it happens so fast that you may not know what's happening, but your brain stores the metadata back in your brain as a form of bias, and it uses that for your own good. Those are the 3 positive advantages that I could think of biasness. However, there are some negative impacts of biases. And the first one is, sometimes if you are not careful, it affects innocent people. Imagine that you become a police officer, and when you were growing up, a family with a particular last name bullied you often, right? And then fast forward someone comes to make a case to you as the head of the police in wherever you are. This is just a scenario we are making up. And then the person that the report is against has the same last name of those people who bullied you a lot when you're growing up. If you are not careful, your bias is going to kick in. And it is fair for it to kick in, but you have to know that that could be a bias. This person could really not be related to the family that you have in mind. And even if they are, in this instance, they really could be innocent. So the point is, sometimes bias can really affect negative people. There are many people who were denied certain scholarships because someone sitting on the board believed that they may not be smart enough. Can you imagine? Some way, somehow, there are people who've turned other people down for certain jobs because people think that they were not capable of, without even interviewing them, without even giving them a fair shot. I am not saying that when you do that is bad. I'm saying that if you do that without enough evidence, by perhaps interviewing the person or getting to know more about a person, you could be biased, and this time it might have a negative impact on an innocent person in this case. Sometimes we could also be biased towards ourselves, right? Growing up, our parents may, or our environment may have put certain ideas in our heads that you are not good enough for something, you are not good enough for a certain career, you are not strong enough for a certain sport, without any evidence. Perhaps your parents were telling you to protect you, to make sure that you don't get hurt, but they don't know the impact it had. So some of us would move with this belief in our heads that it's going to really affect us. And so this is an example of a bias against yourself. Hey, it's really just me having a personal reflection here. I've had a lot of negative biases against myself, right? Me, myself, there are instances where my mother will say, oh, you are not strong enough. But then I've been in instances where I had to do very energy demanding stuff, physically demanding stuff, lifting heavy stuff, doing work. Many points where in my life where I worked in the warehouse, and the amount of load that I would have to carry, I was like, wow, a weak person cannot do this. So it's really me in a reflective zone, deciding to dig deeper into the biases I've had, those that have protected me and those that have really gone to my disadvantage and perhaps affected innocent people, right? But so please just know that you are biased. It doesn't mean it's good or bad, but the next time you are really in a situation, ask yourself, do I have enough evidence to make this decision I'm about to make about this person? Perhaps that could be your bias talking to you. If it might negatively impact their life, please, I plead of you, just take a bit of time, if you can afford to really make sure that you have enough evidence to make some judgments or decisions that might have a negative impact on someone else's life. But hey, what do I know? I am really just a naive observer. Peace.